Hello and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I am the show's host, K. William Spencer. Unfortunately for me, this is my first time using BlogTalk Radio, and the shows that I had the show that I actually wanted to show or start today, start the show with, is actually still processing. It's one that I had to upload to the computer, and they're still processing. So I can't even give you the show introduction, the music introduction, or anything along those lines. And it was too late for me to call my co-host, which I'm hoping she's listening and can give a call in. We'll do the first hour in just conversation, and I'll play the second hour, doing the pre-recorded interview, if it's all finished processing by that time. In the meantime, if you're listening, you want to call in, if you're in the States or you want to make the international call, the number to call in on is 347, area code 347-677-0812. That's 347-677-0812. If you're calling internationally, add 01 to the beginning of that. And if you see the Skype icon, you can call in via Skype. Just click on it and follow the instructions from there. So in the meantime, while we're still waiting for this show or the pre-recorded shows to actually upload or process as we're going through, I'd like to at least start with the conversation one of the many conversations that I've had recently. And if you've been following the blogs on here, shortly after I moved my website from a Wix-based Wix site over to WordPress, I put in a blog. I forgot the title of it, but I can pull it up if it's necessary. The blog was actually just talking about, and the message is more important than title anyway. The message behind it was living the now. And I'm going to change it a little bit because there are some things that I said that are still going to be included in here, but I'm going to give a portion of it that I did not include in the blog itself, which was, from a Christian standpoint, it's often been said, and many people still don't understand it to this day, but they love to quote it. And when they say that, when they read in there about Jesus Christ, I'm forgetting who actually made the quotation, but they said, unless you become like a newborn child, you will not see the kingdom of heaven. And the argument still ensues is, how in the world do you become a newborn child? How do you get born again? You can't climb back into your mother's womb to be reborn again. The whole idea behind this, and it's a very simple idea behind the whole thought, is if you look at a child up to about 5 years old, children 5 years old and younger especially only pay attention to what's going on right now. They have an idea of what past and present is all really about. But they have no idea of how to apply it. The future, tomorrow doesn't exist. I have right now. I can plan for tomorrow as an adult. You can plan for tomorrow as an adult. And many of us, for some reason or another, actually live in the past. As one dear friend of mine put it, says, we only have the now. And if you bring the past into the present, that is your now. You're living not to your fullest, but you're living for something that happened in the past. If you're living for the future, you're just constantly thinking about the future. What are you doing about right now? It's kind of like, I was having this discussion last night. If you want something, you have to get up and go start doing something for it. There are those times where, of course, the universe used different names for God, because God has been run into the ground by too many people, too many different ways. And it usually ends up being something negative when people say God. But okay, we'll use that word every now and then. But when you give something to Creator and you say, I need some help with it, or as the expression goes, the universe will conspire its best to get you what you need. And I said need, not want. The reason why I say need is because many people think that God is the little genie in the lamp. And you rub the lamp and he goes, oh yeah, right there. Oh yeah, okay, whatever you want, master, whatever you want, just keep rubbing right there. Everything will be fine. And expect just that it's going to be given to you. Now, there's many things, many surprises that you'll find in life, and those are the ones we sit up here and go, those are the miracles in life. Because there are times when you ask for something and you don't get exactly what you want. Sometimes you get even more than what you really wanted. Even how I got into being on air here with Freedom Talk Radio Network, because it is actually a network, it was a miraculous thing, but I kept working at it, doing the now, not being fearful of the present, and not letting the past harm me because I'm thinking about, maybe something I did in the past. It wasn't really that bad. It was just something I didn't do that I should have done, and it was going to affect me financially, and I was going, oh man, my future's just going to be screwed up with this. And all I did was just get into my meditative state. And I told the universe what I wanted and what I needed, which was just money. And money to do the things that I wanted to continue to do. And I let go of it. It sounds so easy. Sometimes that part isn't the easiest part, but just let go of it. And I just continue to do what I'm doing, which is I love doing this radio work. I love helping people and sharing with people and whatnot. And those are the wonderful things about what I'm doing. And on the date that I said that I needed the money, I got actually double the money plus some extra. Everything worked out to be just as I needed it to be, but I kept working at it. If I didn't, and I just sat back thinking that God is that genie in the bottle, I would still be wanting and have nothing that I really wanted. So it is that combination. And there have been times when you have no other choice, and that I've experienced before as well, is saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do it, and the answer still comes. So it's not that I'm saying that you will never get that miracle that I didn't have to participate in, but for the majority of life, you do have to put at least that effort forward into it. There's been a friend that I had when I was in Arizona who told me that she and a friend of hers were sitting back looking at TV. Somebody knocked out the door. They went to the door and they gave them $5,000 because they were impressed by spirit to say, hey, I heard that you need this money. And as the story was told to me, the person that came to the door was a total stranger, but gave them $5,000. Are these things possible? Why not? Why are you limiting God if you say, no, it's not possible that happened? Possibilities are abounding. When you say no to it, then you are shutting yourself off to the possibilities of what can and will be in your life if you will open your heart, your mind, and your spirit to it all, for it all to happen. When you're suffering through problems in life, and your problems become overwhelming, are these things actually holding you back? Or are you actually working towards helping them to be something that you need them to be? These are questions that each and every one of us should be asking ourselves at each and every part of our day. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just checking to see. We've got one upload that's finished, but it only lasts 19 seconds. It's just a pre-introduction to the show. So, anyway, we're going to continue on here with the thought. I did have an interview today, a pre-recorded interview, which will be on in about 3 weeks from today, I believe it will be. And I know that you're going to find it very interesting. It seems to be that I'm connecting with a lot of people that are, as my friend, my interviewee, has turned out to be, he and his wife have turned out to be very close friends. And as he says, I'm attracting the abnormal people in life. And I'll give you the part of the conversation that you'll hear in that recording in about 3 weeks, is that every now and then I have this conversation with people about normality and what is normal. And if you're one who is actually searching in life for what can be, I'm sorry, I got a caller in here. I'm sorry, caller, can you hold on just for a little bit? Let me finish this thought because I have nothing to play before that time. So anyway, hold on, let me finish this thought. When we take a look at ourselves and we say, what is normal? I give you the little story that was in front of that one. A friend of mine and I, when we were in our early 20s, lived in Washington, D.C. And to go into the city and pass by, we would normally pass by, which was a huge mental institution with a great big lawn and a great big iron fence, and you'd see all these people running around in the fields or sitting down, whatever, in their white clothes. And we used to go by asking ourselves every now and then, are the people inside the gate the ones who are sane and we're the ones outside the gate that are insane, or is it the other way around? Because we really couldn't figure it out. It's like you look at life and everything that's going on around about us, and you're just kind of wondering, where is the sanity in life? And then the other question, the one that's actually more apropos for this, is if you look at life and you see, or you're searching for something and you're going, wow, this person's a psychic, that person's a clairvoyant, this person is he knows how to move energy, or she knows how to move energy, whether it be as myself, which is a Qigong master, or someone who's a Reiki master, all these things that some people like to say, you've been gifted, or you have a special ability. Well, the ability may be the true part, but it's not a gift. Why? Because I could teach you, and those of us who are doing these things can teach you how to do these things. Even one of the people that I met and knew a little bit while I was living in the States, in Chicago, her name is Sonia Choquette. She actually lived only about 3 miles from where I lived. She wrote a book, her first book, and I bought the manuscript. And I read the manuscript, and she was talking about how she was taught to harness and to use her own abilities, her psychic abilities. And it was a marvelous book. Actually, the printed edition after the manuscript took out a lot of that information, which was unfortunate. But she admitted in her manuscript that these abilities can be learned. There's not just something all of a sudden you just, bing, there it is. No, this is something that you learn. I wasn't born a Qigong master. I learned it. When I was practicing as a psychic, I did not just all of a sudden just realize, bing, I am one, even though partially it was, because starting at 5 years old, these are things that happened with me. But to hone that, I understood what it was that I was doing, which is very simple, and I give you the simplest way of doing it right now, which is if you had experiences as or you've had experiences thinking about, what is the word I'm looking for? Intuition. There were intuitive moments. I knew that that was going to happen. I knew I shouldn't have done that or whatever, and you're being honest with yourself, even if you're not being honest with someone else. But you're being honest with yourself and going, I knew that. I knew the answer to that, and you don't know the reason why. The psychic, the clairvoyant, is the person that says, can I tap into that information at will? And that's where that journey begins. This is that learned part. So simple, but so difficult for some people because they want to make it bigger and much more difficult than it really, really is. Let me go to the caller and see who this is.
Unmuted.
Hi, you're on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Well, greetings, brother. Don't you just love those technical gremlins?
Hi, Stash. How are you? Yeah.
How many times in my career have I had to deal with those things? You know?
Indeed. Well, it's actually your show that I'm waiting for it to upload because, like I said, this is my first time on BlogTalk, so it's like, okay, I'm uploading and I'm going, okay, had plenty of time, it's all uploaded into the computer, then I pull down the screen and I'm going, processing. Oh my goodness. Okay, should have been on here earlier when Andy was showing me how to do this show, so, any rate, my apologies for everyone. So, maybe we'll just air the show another time. So, tell me.
Yeah, that is good.
Maybe next week. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, how you doing today?
I'm all right. I was liking what you were saying about learning things. You know, you can learn anything and everything that you want to learn. Anything like that, you have to set your mind to doing that and believe that you can. And funny thing, you turn around and you say, I knew that.
Uh-huh.
It's too simple, you know, but our society loves to complicate things
big time.
Make it difficult for people.
Well, real quick here, before we continue on with this, let me at least introduce Stash. Stash is his show. I introduced him as, and he says he's never been called this before, I call him the modern-day Henry David Thoreau. Reason being is since we're actually going to do this live, which is fine with me, is that Stash, if you know about his background, which we're going to have about 2 hours to do this, I guess, Stash has a very varied background. I mean, I know my background is varied, but I'm not too sure who could actually outdo anybody if there was a competition. Who would actually outdo who in life's experiences. But he's a lot of fun to talk with and has a lot of information. So once we're going on the spiritual side of life, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but continue on.
Oh, no, that's quite all right, because I was just trying to add a little bit to what you were, and you on a great train of thought there. So, well, continue on.
Well, you can stay there. We'll just make this conversation as we normally do anyway. The show tends to be more of a conversation than anything else, and we like to keep it lighthearted and smiling and fun. And for those who don't understand that, I put it this way, because in the childhood I grew up in, sometimes people would say, you're laughing too much. That's a sign of you're with the devil. And it's like, what? Yeah.
You're having too much fun, you're under arrest.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, people would just want to, it's that thing of trying to fit into a community belief, or they want you to conform to, this is the way we look at life and this is the way you should look at life, which all of this conformity in its own way can be, in certain instances, it can actually be the cause of so many of the problems that we have, including wars. Because somebody always wants you to conform to this way and that way. And this is what, even with, now I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek, so listeners, listen to me and let me explain what I'm about to say. That religions have oftentimes been the major sources of wars. It is, my God is better than your God. You don't believe the way that I do, and I'm going to make sure that you do. And if you don't, we're going to go to war over it. And it's a horrible way to do things. If religion were so peaceful, I'm speaking not of just all, but I'm speaking in general, because you can look at your own religion, and if you have these constant things about wars and soldiers and this and that, you need to actually consider, is my religion really that of peace and love and do no harm, not only physically, but not only physically, but mentally and spiritually to another person? There is one thing that I love about my study in Judaism. You can go anywhere in the world, and every Jewish person that is at least practicing Judaism will tell you, you don't need to be Jewish to know God. And if you go look at it from the book of Genesis, the book of Genesis will tell you that God created everything that we know and we don't know, and things that we choose to ignore. But he did not create two things. You know what those are, Stash?
I do. War and religion.
Okay, in that case, make it three things.
Oh, okay.
No, he didn't create war. That wasn't the one I was thinking about. No, he didn't create religion. He didn't create the world and go, hey, this is the way I want you to worship me. He left it open. He says, hey, I'm your creator. Come and get to know me. Okay? That's the open statement that you see there. Is he didn't say, this is blah, 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 blah. This is just, get to know me. Here's a story. And who are we getting the story from? Who wrote the Bible? The Jewish people. So understand it from that point of view. This is why Judaism says you don't have to be Jewish to know God. That's why you don't find them knocking on your doors during the weeks or weekends going, can I talk to you about the Torah? Okay. So that's about as peaceful as you're
going to get. That would set me back for a week.
Yeah, I think it would set everybody back. They're like, what? So just get some...
Well, it's kind of funny because my great awakening came, my grandfather was a Southern Baptist preacher, and he was not as militant as my grandmother. She was a hardcore evangelistic fifth grade school teacher, but that sort of soured the milk for me because they were always on me about it. But then one day, like you said, your discovery about Judaism, I saw a video from World War II with the Pope blessing German tanks. And by this turning around and blessing the Americans, and wait a minute, why is the supposedly spiritual, peaceful leader of the country who teaches of the world who preaches that God is love and why is he blessing tanks? And I realized that it's all business. And then I started reading about the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition, and I realized, to me, this is my opinion, all religion is about controlling people. It has nothing to do with spirituality. The only way you can grow your spirituality is on a personal basis. You have to accept what you believe in and not be told by somebody else, this is what you must believe in.
Yeah.
And it's counterproductive, to say the least.
Yeah, one of the movies that I saw, it was from a Spanish director. Now, I live in Mexico, so I wouldn't actually say I'm fluent in Spanish, but I do well enough. But this is a movie, I believe his first name was Guillermo, and I don't remember the rest of his name. He's done a lot of great movies, and I actually enjoy watching his movies. But he did one of the Franco-era Spain, back around in the 30s, I believe it was. And now, How much of his movie was built on truth, I don't know, but I've heard this expression since then. I think I heard it before then. There was a dinner going on with the quote-quote elites of that era in Spain, and one of the people at the table was, I believe it was a cardinal or a bishop or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a Catholic, so nor was I ever in this lifetime. But the thing that they were talking about at the table was what were they supposed to do with the rebels once they were fighting the regime. And the Catholic priest, we'll just leave it at that, he just looked up matter-of-factly and he says, kill them all. God is only interested in their souls. That was his reply to it. In other words, human life doesn't really mean anything. Now, is that a personal thing? Is that a personal belief, or is this something that goes into the Vatican? I don't know. But it makes you wonder with what you just got through saying about the Pope blessing priests and then turning around and, Pope blessing tanks and then turning around and blessing the soldiers of the opposing army.
Well, it's as with them. Once again, I'm only stating my own opinion, but you're talking about the wealthiest corporation in the world, and there's only really one way they can get that way, and that is through ultimate hardcore control.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear, one of the things that drove the Pope to think he owns the world was the fear that drove the kings of being excommunicated.
Yeah.
And so we turn around and we'll go conquer the new world and we'll give everything to you, just don't throw me out of the church. Well, why not? I mean, if the church is going to be that way, the greed and avarice are two of the things in the Bible that are supposed to be, mortal sins or such. And yes, the unwashed masses, the church doesn't really care about unless they're fawning over the church. It's been a conundrum for me. If you're trying to save my soul, why don't you care about me?
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah, well, the confusing part about it for me, like I said, I didn't grow up Catholic. I had Catholic friends, but I didn't really study into Catholicism until I got into my 20s, and even that it was still surface studying. It was just to know certain points and so on and so forth, so I will never put myself up as an authority on what is the Catholic Church. But I grew up hearing about this excommunication. And, okay, you're kicked out of church and people are, oh no, and I couldn't figure out, so what? So you get kicked out. Well, it came up in a conversation. I'm not sure if it was with you in the last week or someone else, but someone was actually telling me of what excommunication meant back in the days of Catholicism's height, which was basically during the Dark Ages and into basically early 1800s. Before, I would actually say before Lutheran posted his theses. And back in those days, if you were a Christian, there was only one way to identify yourself as a Christian. It was you were Catholic. And that was it. So if you got kicked out, if you were excommunicated, you were just outside of the pale, and now you're just running around loose, and basically you just felt so far removed, which is where Dante's Inferno came from, okay, when he was excommunicated. And nowadays, this is where I was basing mine from. It's like, and so what? So you're kicked out, and there's so many churches right here in my own neighborhood. It's kind of like, what are you worried about? Just go join another one. But I didn't think of it until somebody was just reiterating with me that, in those days you were either a Christian or you were one of those who they would actually either ostracize or they would, part of what you were talking about before, the Inquisition, which was you will become or you will die, and even if you're making it that difficult, as soon as you accept it, you are in heaven, now we'll kill the body so you don't change your mind. In short.
Yeah, the thing about that was, back in those times, from what I've read, it was people started learning how to read. And once the printing press was invented, the priests and the rich weren't the only ones that had access to the Bible. And people started understanding that there is more than one way to get to the Creator, and you don't necessarily need that middleman there. And all of a sudden, the church started losing control. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, "What do I need you for? Why should I pay you, 10% of everything I make, just so you'll sit there and live in the lap of luxury when I'm a peasant, and 10% of my crops that could have fed my family a little better for the rest of the year has to go to you, so God will look at me with favor because you say so." Well, these days, at least again in my opinion, there are as many religions or belief in religion as there are people on the planet. You can all go the same way, but since no two people have the same experiences, the same life, whatever, everybody sees that particular organization or that particular organization in their own way. And you can't fight that. You have to let people be who they are and believe what they're going to believe. Battle on your hands. Fortunately for me, my parents, my preacher's kid, he was a typical preacher's kid, full raiser and whatever, but he took all of us, he and my mother took us to all the religions. We went, to the Catholic, the Unitarian, we saw Buddhism, we saw Hinduism, Jainism, Judaism, all of these things we were shown. And then when we became adults, my very enlightened parents said, choose. What's right for you? What works for you? And we'll honor that decision. As long as you're, making some kind of effort towards spiritual growth and, being a good person.
Mm-hmm. Gotta love your parents. No.
It doesn't matter.
Let's take a trip back.
It's what you do with it.
Exactly. Let's take a little trip back, because I used to hear this stuff a lot back in the 80s. People were starting to do that. Taking them around and showing them, okay, here, you choose. And some people just wouldn't even do that. It's just they wouldn't give their children any sort of religious background. In other words, no foundation for it, and they just let them be whatever they wanted to be. But how long ago was that for you in your childhood?
Well, God, we started hitting various churches when I was early in my teens. Of course, by then, there were 5 of us with one more to be had a few years later. But with 5 of us, they didn't want to have to do an indoctrination into something they didn't believe in with 5 different kids. So they just said, we'll show you what's available. And that was, of course, 63, 64, somewhere in there. We'd been through a lot by then, but they really started spreading out around then, early 60s, and saying, okay, this doesn't feel right to us, but if it does to you, you go right ahead. Mm-hmm. But it's up to you to choose, because ultimately you're going to have to live your life, and we can't do that for you. And of course, right behind that, they said, and if you go out and get in trouble, we'll bail you out once. But after that, you're on your own if you don't learn from it. But whatever you do, whatever you get into, as long as it makes you a better person, that's what really matters.
Yes.
And I love that attitude. It, as I say, I was fortunate to be raised by two very enlightened people. They knew that one answer didn't fit everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and people are going to see life a little bit differently. Even you and I had this conversation not too long ago. Stash is an old in relationship to, never mind. He's an old friend, and we're more like brothers. So it's kind of like my brother from another mother. And we, as I was saying earlier, I've never used this with Stash, but he's one of my abnormal friends.
Thank you. Nice of you to notice.
There you go. So, I don't know. I had a thought that I was going there, and I started laughing and forgot all about it. But let's see if I can.
Well, the bottom line, of course, is that I take pride in the fact that, and I tell a lot of people, I'm no one you've ever met before.
Mm-hmm.
You can try and compare me to all kinds of people, but I'm not that person. I am who I am. I'm happy with who I am. If you don't like me, that's fine. That's fine. But go over there and don't like me, because you don't have to stand here in my face all the time saying, I don't like you. I don't care. Excuse the looseness here, but, your opinion carries about the weight of a fart in a hurricane with me, and it's all in your head, not mine. What in the overall scheme of my life, what effect does your opinion have on me? Well, pretty much to nothing. Yeah. There's very few people whose opinions actually mean my lady, what she thinks. I'm all about, listening to and caring about what she thinks, because she's an integral part of my life. But, someone I meet online who's, I don't like you, well, fine, unfriend me on Facebook or go somewhere else and complain about me. I don't care. There's no skin off my back. Yeah. The people who know me know who I am, to an extent, although nobody really knows anybody as well as they'd like to think they do.
Yeah.
But there's a different role that everybody puts on for everybody they meet.
Yeah.
What role am I playing? You. What role am I today? But you can only act from your conscience, your belief, your life experiences, and they're different from everybody else's. Well, you don't like me because of the things I think and the places I've been or the things I've done. Okay, fine. That's your choice, your opinion. And that's all I can leave it at. I can't really complain. If I feel it's somewhat important, I might try and explain to them why I came to this point. But with a lot of people, they have preconceived ideas, and once they get an opinion in their head about how things are, there's no changing it. No matter what you say or do, they already have this preconceived notion in their own head based on their experiences, their biases, their prejudices, that you're not going to overcome in 5 minutes.
Mm-mm.
It's just not going to happen unless, you can, part the Red Sea or turn wine into water or, walk on water. It's not going to be an instant thing. You cannot change people's minds that way.
No.
And then, of course, a lot of times it brings up the idea of cognitive dissonance. Your belief or your actions are so antithetical to what they believe, and yet you feel it's right, and you try and show them it's right, and it's conflicting with their inner workings, and their eyes glaze over, and they go, no, that can't be, and they won't accept. And, of course, there's also selective hearing. I know you understand what you think I said, but what you heard wasn't what I really meant.
Yeah.
It's a hard battle, but I've just come to the point where, okay, fine. If you don't want to believe that or think about that or whatever, go on with your life and leave me alone.
With what you just got through saying, let me ask you basically a twofold question. Because people oftentimes answer a question or reply to a statement that's said with the intent of being, or with the intent of replying, but they don't seem to understand. And you were just talking about that. People don't really understand what was conveyed to them, but they want to reply. Sometimes it's out of ego, sometimes it's just to keep the conversation going, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to throw that in the bottle, the general bottle of ego. And then, as you're saying, you're talking about knowing one another, and we don't really know each other as much as we think we do, which I want to throw that into the ego bottle real quick, and then understanding that we are all connected. Everything. I'm not talking about if you're a listener on the show and you're wondering, oh, I've heard that expression before. We're all connected. What does that really mean? If I can go into it a little bit, and Stash will put it in his own words, is that we are all energy. And some people don't have an understanding what energy really is. There's static electricity, which you don't see, but if you drag your feet over something that's really dry, like a carpet or something like that, you feel the static electricity when you go to touch something that's metal. Oh, yeah, ooh, that's jump. Ooh, wow, that's weird. Okay, the air is filled with all sorts of radio waves. When I was a child, I used to think that the radio and the television waves came through the power cord, because that was the only thing I could actually just wrap my head around at about 5 years old. It was like, signals coming through the wall plug. Okay. I could not wrap my head around that at 5 or maybe a little bit younger, is how in the world can I get a picture or a radio signal or a walkie-talkie signal, because those were popular back in my day. How could I get that coming through the air? That was weird to me. But with that being understood, that air waves are full of radio waves, they're full of sun rays, solar rays, and you name it, cosmic rays, and all these other times, energy is everywhere. We cannot create energy, but we can manipulate it. We cannot kill it. This is the manipulation is in X-rays, in radio, TV waves. As even George Carlin puts it, the electricity in your wall is nothing more than controlled lightning. So,
I like that.
Yeah, so with all this being understood is that we are all interconnected with each other through the energy that flows. And if you want to take another step further, if this world is, by some people's belief, 6,000 years old or millions of years old, regardless of which, the water and the air that we consume on a daily basis has been here since the world came into existence. There's nothing new on this planet. There's new inventions, but it's still the same products dug up from the ground or taken from the air, or in our cases, many times, put into the air, which circulates and comes back down to the ground. There's nothing new here. Everything that we eat and drink and everything else has been here in some form or fashion somewhere else in time. So we are all interconnected. So with that being said, and getting back to the real thought of knowing versus connection, I'd like to hear your opinion on how in the realm of knowing on the connected level, in other words, without the ego. If you want to call it the psychic level or the spiritual level, whatever, which is it does not have the ego involved in it, versus the ego of saying, yes, I know you, and when the person speaks and tell you, okay, what do you know about me? And they actually can't answer the question. But when a person generally answers that question, they start talking about things that have made you who you are. In other words, your past. And some people get hung up on the past, and I've told people many times, don't focus on my past. I'm no longer that person. That was me at that age. This is me now. So, without going into much further, what do you think on those lines?
Well, we're constantly growing and changing, of course. Every little bit of input into our life changes us. Every breath you take changes you in some way. If you get down to the quantum level, and now quantum physicists are saying the same thing that the mystics have been saying for 3,000 years. Nothing is solid. Nothing is real. It's all energy. And I read also that basically our constructs we construct and are just basically like we're a pattern in the great cosmic energy field. It makes incredible sense. I took issue with the very first statements out of the Bible. First there was the Word. Well, there is no word without thought. Mm-hmm. You can't say anything until you think about it first. And in order to create, you have to have a thought first. So basically, we're all thoughts. I used to use a little example like you are God saying, "What if Kirk?" or Stash, and all of a sudden there's and an idea is created behind it, and here we are. Said a few minutes, we're all star seeds. Everything that makes up supposedly came from a star exploding that created, for instance, heavy metals and different chemicals, because at first these things didn't exist, but through chemical reactions and the great creations and whatever, these things came into being. We're the same way. We were an idea. If you think about it, we were an idea our parents came up with. And no pun intended on that, but still. But as we grow and more experience, our thoughts change. And the difference being between us is my life experiences, my images that I create in my mind. When I say a word, I have an image behind it. It's based on who I am, what I've experienced, my pictures, and short of telepathy, verbal language is so inept at transferring those images to another person, because their images interpret what you've said. Not necessarily heard what you've said, but interpret what you've said to them differently than what you meant. Communication is a real thing. Communicating effectively, there wouldn't be wars, there wouldn't be jealousy, there wouldn't be, those kinds of things, envy, or whatever. It's just people don't hear what other people say.
Yeah.
They hear their interpreter said. And so only really find your own and come up with what you believe did in life, what experiences you had, how you were. I went to the forum. It was an outcropping of Est, and basically it came down to, okay, so your parents got divorced and you and this happened and that happened, and it all adds up to a big cup of so what?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing now?
Yeah.
Have a movement and get off the pot, or don't just sit there and stew. Do something about it. What you are in the past can only provide a basis for what you can do right now. What are you doing to change it? Instead of having a pity party, what are you doing to change it? What are you doing to grow? That's the big thing. We're here to grow and thrive and learn and enjoy life. But there are those who greed. I'm fond of saying there are no boundaries to human stupidity and greed. Greed has been nurtured in our culture. The European inbred culture that came over here and conquered this country knows nothing of peaceful coexistence. Their whole thing is to conquer, to use, to, take everything you can get, because there isn't enough for everybody. Well, Buckminster Fuller in Critical Path, he did a study and he came up and said, if you take all of the resources in the world, all of them, and divided them equally among the people, we'd all be millionaires.
Yep.
There's more than enough.
Yep.
It's just that some people thrive on taking from others and promoting a mentality of lack.
Yeah.
Well, if it isn't there, you can manifest it.
Yep.
You can go out and create it. Just any idea you have is an invitation to creation.
Mm-hmm. Stash,
all you have to do is take action on it.
Definitely. We have another caller. Do you mind if we pull one in?
Oh, go on. I just called in because you were having technical difficulties.
Well, no, stick around. I don't want you to go anywhere. We're going to pull one in, and
I'm here,
and see where we go. Who knows? We get into a discussion here.
I like it.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Who are we speaking with? Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. There you are.
Hello.
Who are we speaking with?
This is Amanda.
Oh, hi, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good, sweetie. I've obviously called in a little bit too early.
Well, no, actually, probably a little bit too late, but that's okay. We're doing a live show because, as I was telling on the air earlier, that I uploaded everything here to BlogTalk, and it's still telling me some stuff is still processing, and I want to refresh the screen, but I don't want to lose the station, so I think we'll just leave the pre-recorded stuff for next week's show, and it will sound a lot more professional, but we're just going to go from there. So, Amanda, this is Stash. He was actually going to be the pre-recorded section of our show today, and he was listening, so he called in, and we were just making conversation. So, Amanda, Stash.
Yeah, I was listening in. I just assumed it was recorded. I was like, what he called in earlier.
Greetings, Amanda.
I love technology.
Actually, you're
Well, greetings, Miss Amanda. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Joe. So I'm now here, and nice to meet you.
I'm fascinated by your accent. I'm a student of accents.
Ah, okay. Well, you have to guess where in the UK I'm from.
Oh, my first impulse would have been to say you're from down under.
Down under.
I'm not that adept at determining accents, on a regional basis. Just
Okay,
General.
well, I'm from the south, so south of England and Oxford, so it's about an hour and a half northwest of London.
Ah.
My favourite city, alongside New York.
Well, Stash, you want to hear the crazy part? Ask her where she's calling from.
Okay.
No, my secret.
What's that?
Oh, well, then maybe I shouldn't ask.
No, I'm actually sitting on my terrace in St Martin, and I have a lagoon view to my right, and I have a sea view to my left, and I have a lovely 3.5-year-old daughter who's not very well today, sleeping upstairs. So I'm mum and radio host today. So not everything goes according to plan, as Kirk was saying earlier.
No, it's not going to plan, but it's working out just fine so far, so I'm not complaining.
Well, everything is as it's supposed to be, so I'm rolling with it.
There's a very prophetic statement. I like that. Everything is as it's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I like that. Thank you.
My
I'm going to use
pleasure.
that today.
You know what? I need to write that down. I don't know where that came from. This is
Oh,
what
we
happens
know
when
where
I-
it
this is
came
what happens when I
from.
get online with Kirk.
We know where it came from. It came from source, and you were
Yeah.
meant to say it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my pleasure.
A lot
Anytime.
of times people get those kinds of thoughts and don't say them. What a waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's taken me a long time to get the courage to say them, and now I have the courage, and I'm saying it.
Yeah, that's another thing there. People are too afraid to be who they are. You know, and what we were saying earlier about conformity and whatever. I decided as basic what say always stood out. I couldn't hide.
Wow. Oh.
And now at 6'8" and plus, I just say, hey, you know, this is me. Take it or leave it. Especially on stage when I'm performing, you know, this is who I am. You know, if you don't like it, don't come back for the next show.
Stash, I only
Yeah,
have
no,
one
too
question
right.
for you about performing live on stage. Doesn't it get
Yes.
a little bit hot up there close to those, say, ceiling lights?
Well, you know, of course, you look at those great big rock stars on the big stages with the huge light shows.
Yeah.
They don't wear shades on stage because they're cool. They wear them to keep from going blind, and a lot of them have sunscreen, and they also have earplugs because it's loud. But yeah, the lights. But of course, when I'm on stage and performing, I'm dancing and singing and playing, and I sweat.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. As a matter of fact, if I don't, then I figure I'm not doing my job. You know, they're putting everything into the performance.
Yeah.
So yeah, those lights get really warm.
Do you go into? I have a question as well. Do you kind of go into the zone? I know when I was acting, when I'm up on stage, I kind of used to go into the zone where kind of the audience wasn't necessarily there, and it just be you kind of be in the space. It's very difficult to describe. I just call it the zone. Do you go into the zone when you're playing?
I call it autopilot. I have walked onto stage. I'll admit it, I have stage fright until I take the first step towards the stage. And then I go into what I call chill mode. Okay, and on my own shows, I'll walk up on stage. The first thing I'll do is grab a microphone and say, honey, I'm home. And then, you know, I don't think about song lyrics. And I've worked on this with one of my exes who was a world-class vocalist, but she kept worrying about remembering song lyrics. And I said, you screw up when you start thinking about them.
Yes.
You know these lyrics, you know the song, just be the song, and it will come out. And it will come out just the way it's supposed to. And it does. I don't really... The only thing I think about on stage is looking at the set list to make sure I'm doing the right song that we're supposed to go to next. But once the music starts, there's no thinking. It's just do. And you're right, it is the zone. And for me, it actually starts a little earlier. From the minute I walk in the door, presenting the entertainment that night, till the time I leave, I belong to the crowd. The audience is there to be entertained by me, and that's not just on stage. Of course, when I'm on stage, I don't stay on stage. I work with a wireless vocal mic and a wireless harmonica mic, and I spend as much as 40% of my time out in the crowd performing for people. I had a big row about that with one of my singers who was into acting also, and I've studied acting. And she said, "Don't you know about the fourth wall? You know, you're not supposed to. They're supposed to be watching you live in this little thing here, and you're turning the dance floor into part of the stage. That's why people won't dance." I said, "No, I'm turning the whole club into part of the stage, and everybody's part of the act. This is show business, not acting." Mm-hmm. You know, so if you don't involve your audience, they sit there, "Yeah, well, that was nice, but so what?"
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen 14 dozen people already do the same thing on that stage, and yeah, they played good music, but it wasn't entertaining.
Yeah, I wasn't part of it.
I can take any artist's CD and come home and put it on my stereo and tweak it until I'm having absolute eargasms. You know, I mean, it sounds perfect, but you will never get that in a live performance, because that's not what it's about. People don't go to a show to sit and listen, just listen to the music. They go to see and be entertained and be part of an event. And if you don't make it an event, I mean, I love the Moody Blues. They're great. Their music is wonderful. It's nice to take a nap by. You know, and you go to a show, and there's no visual stimulus. I mean, they might have a halfway decent light show, but you're sitting there just watching them stand and perform this music. It's not real entertainment. There's a real distinction there for me between just performing and entertaining. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. And I just want to expand on what you said. You said when you start thinking, that's when you start to forget stuff. And especially recently for me, I've been practicing some techniques which involve not thinking at all. And that's really when things start to happen. Because when you ask your mind, your conscious brain, how to solve problems, it doesn't necessarily know. And that's when it starts to mess things up for you. So especially the last few months, I've realized that the more I think, sometimes the less I know. So the less I think, the more I become. And when you said that, that really resonated with me. I thought that was fantastic.
Well, you're becoming a character. That character, if that character was in real life, wouldn't be thinking, okay, what am I supposed to say next? What am I supposed to do next? They just do. They just think. They just say who they are. They express themselves however they do that without thinking about it. It's just totally natural. Well, in becoming a character, that's the whole thing. You have to become that character and just think and do. Sure, there are prearranged lines, but you know those lines because that's how this character is. That's who this character is. That is what this character would say if you were talking to them out on the street in real life. So that's just is yourself totally in the situation and being that. So
Let me do something real quick here, and we'll get right back to it, since I still don't have the audio clips that I had prepared here, talking about just being able to go into auto mode. I just want to announce that you are listening to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I am your host, K. William Spencer. My guest here is Stash, and the co-host is actually Amanda Steadman, who's living down in the Caribbean island of St. Martin. We are part of the Freedom Talk Radio Network. So welcome to it, and we'll get back to some more information about Freedom Talk a little bit later in the show. Anyway, Amanda and Stash were talking about being in the moment, basically, and not thinking about what you need to do. You already know what you have to do, so you just get up and you go do it, which kind of got me into where we're doing this show. Everything is just live today. Nothing is pre-recorded. Because
we're working without that.
Yeah, and I'm working without a script, so it's just one of those things of, it's either I just go, the show isn't going to go on today, or I just ad-lib it. So I'm just ad-libbing it and going into the zone, Amanda. So we're just having that fun.
Best place to be.
Yeah, I'm just in the now. This is what I'm talking about. When I was talking about earlier in the show when the Stash came on, it was just live the now. Don't worry about the future. The past doesn't exist. It's done. It's over with. You got right now to live. So that's your zone.
That brought to mind the thought of something I read not long ago. As far as past and future are concerned, if you're trying to live in the past, when are you thinking about it? Well, you're thinking about it right now. When you're thinking about the future, when are you thinking about it? It's right now. Right now is all you have. You have nothing else. It's irrelevant. The past is gone. The future isn't here. You have right now. What are you going to do with it?
Yep.
And sure, you'll base it on what you've done in the past, maybe, or what you want to do in the future. But the only thing that's truly relevant and important is what you're doing right now. And that's that.
Indeed, it's actually something that I loved actually the way that you said it, because this is what I've always said in other shows, is that I can say something one way, you can say the exact thing using your own words, and somebody else may grasp that. But I actually love the way that you said that, so it's very apropos as far as I'm concerned. Amanda, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, I was just wondering, you disappeared. Amanda has this wonderful way of listening, and then you're checking, are you still there? Are you still breathing?
I'm very, very into listening. I love observing. That's something else that I've learned, especially since having 2 children 3 years ago. And again, continuing on this journey of self-discovery is really practicing my listening. And when you listen and you're observing and you're standing back from everything that's going on around you, it's amazing how much other people potentially miss. And just to really, I mean, I have people's energy as well, obviously, when you're around them in person. But I'm just always fascinated by what people are saying, where they're coming from, their particular energy. And so I've become an extremely good listener over the last 3 years. And it's a very amazing thing when you observe and you stand back. It's a whole different realm, and I really enjoy it. But I am here. I'm listening intently. So I will come in with something very profound shortly.
It made me think of something here when I was given a camera finally. I never really got this. I couldn't afford the film and the developing and all that stuff, but somebody gave me a digital camera. And what I started realizing is that there are all these little vignettes of life in the big picture, and focusing down on one little piece there that's absolutely beautiful, but most people just walk right on by. But to focus down and capture that one little piece, oh, I never saw that. Well, it was right there in front of you. If you'd looked.
Yep.
So, that's... the whole thing. You by watching people, you're catching little vignettes of their life, little vignettes of their feelings, how they think, what they do. But that's just that. That's that one instantaneous little piece of this person or that situation or whatever that you're experiencing because you're focused down on that. While so much else is going on. But those little pieces are what make up the big picture. Each of a little vignette of life on Earth, or whatever your scale of thought is. But we're each our own little piece of the picture, and too many people are trying to be the same picture within a picture, which gets really boring, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But I just want to expand on, because I know you guys were talking about wars and kind of quite deep subjects in the first part of the show. Just coming back to ego itself, and I know we're talking about the zone and vignettes and people's lives. The other thing the observation that I've made while observing in observation, let's get deep here, is how much the ego does play in the everyday lives of people. Things I haven't actually had time to speak to Kirk about this, but a couple of events happened to me on Sunday here where I am. There was a couple of neighbours that made a couple of claims, and somebody else, something to do with the apartment, did something else. And when I just stood back, initially I was, angry and very hurt and very upset. But then after a couple of hours, I kind of just went, hang on a minute, this is my ego's it's my ego. My ego's getting in the way. Let's just calm all this down and come back to love and to, logic. And from that observation, then it was very easy for me to see that, the problems that were surrounding me were ego-based for those people. And you have to kind of cut them some slack, because ego isn't really what they're about. But when you're in the moment and you're feeling those emotions, then it's not with ease to observe and to separate yourself.
Amanda,
I don't know whether you can hear that noise going on in the background.
That's okay.
Somebody doing building or something. Hopefully this mic has muted the sound. I've got one of those Audio Technica 2020 things, so hopefully it's sounding more professional.
It's life.
Sounds fine. I don't hear any noise.
Okay, fantastic. Were you going to say something, Ken?
I was just saying it's life. Don't worry about it, because over on my end, I keep hearing, it seems like the signal keeps fading in and out, so I'm not sure what the heck's going on. But okay, it's life, and this is technical issues, so don't worry about it. But let me ask here, you're talking, Stash, and Amanda, both of you were talking about listening and watching to people. And while you guys were talking about this, it reminded me of the days when I was working as a private detective, and even before then. And I had always developed a way of just listening to people. And this is Stash, we were talking about that before Amanda came on, is actually listening to people to understand what they're saying, not listening just to respond. And I would usually go talk with a person. Sometimes I was asked to do, sometimes I was just doing it just because I wanted to, and I wanted to listen to the person and what they were saying. And if you actually stop to listen to what a person says while they're talking, you get to hear exactly what they mean. And this is something Stash was talking about before you came on, Amanda, was that when you actually listen to a person to what their meaning is, he says, I said what I meant, but I can't help you to understand what I mean if you're not willing to listen. So I would come back about 5-10 minutes later after talking with the person, and I would give the person, usually if I was investigating, I would give them all this details, and they said, how did you get that out of 5 minutes of conversation when I talked to them for an hour? And I said, I listen, and I watch how they're moving. It's just all those little details, like Stash was talking about. It's just looking at the details, and people are going, I didn't see that, I didn't hear that. That's because you were looking to respond, not looking to understand. Uh-oh. I left you with this.
Well, yeah, that's once again getting past the ego. So as you're both saying, how I relate to what you say is how I interpret what you said. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you said. But being able to stand back and just really understand this is not you. They're not saying things the way you would say them. They're not saying the things you say. And, of course, since a majority of communication between two people, I mean, verbal communication is such a small part of how people communicate. It's not what you say, it's more how you say it. And a lot of people don't realize what their body language is really saying to other people. And then when you put it back to them, well, that's not what I said. No, but that's what your body said. That's what your eyes said. That's what your emotions said. I can tell you were thoroughly, the subject thoroughly entrances you. You have an emotional response to it, even though you may be talking calmly, because your eyes dilated and your hands are going 100 miles an hour, in this particular zone. You're expressing 10 times more than more. And yeah, I know you're saying one thing, but the eyes don't lie. Mm-hmm. So, that's where that ego thing comes again. They can only base what they're saying on what they know, what they feel. And of course, as I said before, their images and the way they put those images with words are probably different than the person who's communicating with them. So you never get short of telepathy, you never get 100% communication. I can't plant my images in your mind. All I can do is try and express them with this lame communication we call verbal communication. It's so limited.
Yeah, I'll just expand on that in terms of energy as well. I've been working with a lot more with energy the month, and again, in terms of resolving conflict, I mean, it's so basic because it comes back to, even if the other person's really, really annoyed you, I'm not going to use expletives on the show today, but when they really, really, really got to you, again, because I feel I have these different tools to stand back and just assess it, rather than come from the human ego and negative emotion, to obviously handle the negative emotion, because it does come up. We're only human. I think even no matter how far up the vibration or the enlightened ladder you are, you're still going to feel some of those negative emotions. And so handle those, get those out of the way as fast as possible, and then come back to those positive emotions of love and caring. And I know just with certain things that happened to me, once I got rid of that negativity and just back to, okay, either this person or these people, this group or organization are not doing what I believe is correct, I just need to send them approval. I need to send them love, because, that's what everybody's looking for at the end of the day. And if you can send it back to them energetically wise, I've found that, miracles, have happened. So for anyone that is going through conflict right now, you're feeling those negative emotions, you need to let those go and come back, at least to yourself, for that peace of mind, that calmness. And no matter what other people have done to you or what situations you're in, if you can let that negativity go and bring yourself emotionally back to positivity, that this is when a lot of the conflicts seem to be resolved.
I can agree with that. As an example, my daughter, when she was a young teenager, was almost as headstrong and stubborn as I was in that age. And we would get into arguments. The first thing I realized was when I started seeing, if I yelled at her, her eyes glazed over. She just wasn't hearing me anymore. And then I'd get more aggravated, and finally I realized, you know what, I need to just walk away. And being as stubborn as she would try to continue. And finally I just had to say, look, Sarah, don't talk to me right now. Right now, I have to process this. I have to walk away. I'll come back in a little bit and we'll talk about this. We're not going to argue. We're not going to yell and scream. I'm going to go settle my mind. You go settle down, and we'll come back and talk about it. There just comes a point, and I think that's one of the reasons why wars and confrontations and such happen, is because people will not stop and walk away for a second and think about what it is they're saying and doing, and they get so wrapped up in their own emotion and everything that communication totally ceases. There is none other than just violence, vehemence, just being uptight. And at some point, you have to let that go.
Yeah, if you don't listen,
or you're never going to communicate.
Yeah, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to kick your tail. Yeah.
Exactly, and even if they listen, they don't hear. So it's
yeah,
a weird.
I need to do some courses on listening, don't I? I need to teach some people some courses on listening. That's what I need to do. Here, come and listen with me for a week.
I caught you in your Freudian unawares.
Yeah, totally. But it's funny you should say that, because you're talking about your daughter there, and I have to use my husband as an example because he's French, and the French like to express themselves. And when we've had our robust dialogues, and we call it robust dialogue, we don't say arguments, we say robust dialogue, and he has to express. I don't know, it's a French thing. I've talked to a lot of my English girlfriends that are married with French guys, or vice versa, French ladies with guys, and they say no, they have to express themselves. So what I figured out is I'm the one that walks away. I like to go away. I just spend a couple of minutes breathing, and then I come back, because that ego is so quick to come in. Ego speaks first, and ego speaks loudest. So I like to remove myself from the situation for a couple of minutes and just go, hang on a minute, let's come back to love. Let's come back to love. What would love do now? I need to go away for a few minutes and calm down and just get my ego in check, and then I come back. Because sometimes that ego is very, very powerful. I'm sure people that are listening have been in situations with their children or their partners, even with colleagues, where, that anger comes straight up, and the last thing you really want to be doing is connecting your anger to your mouth.
Yeah.
You need to let's just take some time out. And it isn't always easy, even with all the tools that I have. Sometimes if he pushes the wrong button, but now my tongue and go approving of my husband and send him some approval, and as soon as I change that energy, it's a different ball game, and we do not have the continuing robust dialogue that we have had in the past. But yeah, I found that really useful, and that struck a chord with me, what you said about your daughter.
It's kind of funny to me. For many years I was a stage manager, and the other title for stage manager, of course, is DA, and I'm not going the designated, bad guy.
It goes with the rear end of the body, okay?
Yes. Thinking sphincterally. But I used to, I had to deal with a lot of egomaniacal rock stars. God's gift to music. And I can see where they would get their egos. You're in a business where people are constantly telling you how wonderful you are, how great you did, how they just love you, and I basically had 3 stage rules, and the first one had to deal with ego, and that was I didn't allow them. No egos. I said, now if you want ego, I'm really only 4'9". The rest of my 6'8" is ego. Now you want to really get into that kind of a swinging contest with me on my stage, and it would, that's, you back them down, but it's hard when their egos get crushed. People get bitter. And it was my job not to care about that. I hated that pop where I had to go deal with their egos and tell them, I don't care who you think you are, get the hell off my stage, you're done. But they want me back. I don't care. I got another band coming up. Go away. and they don't know how to deal with that. It's hard. So ego is a big driving. I mean, you have to have an ego to be in entertainment. You really do. If you didn't, you wouldn't walk up on the stage in the first place. It's like when I was a diver in high school on the swimming team. We picked up a comedy, or a stunt man as a coach, part-time coach, and he taught us comedy diving. Well, the rule there is if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. People don't laugh and whatever if it doesn't hurt. So I learned to do a dozen belly flops in a row. Didn't hurt. It looked like it hurt. It sounded like it hurt. But he says you don't remember from one time to the next how it feels, or you'd never get back up on the diving board. It's the same thing with the stage. If you thought about all of your failures, all the times you failed to connect, all of the times you got not so hot reactions from crowds, you probably wouldn't go back on the stage. You'd let your ego take over and say, oh, well, I suck. You know? Mm-hmm. Well, that isn't the case. You had a bad performance. I had one bad performance that stopped me from singing for 19 years. But then I realized most people want you to be a success. The crowd comes in and they pay their money. They want you to be good. They want you to be a success. When you're talking with someone.
Uh-oh. We have a baby.
I'm still here, guys. My 1.5-year-old just arrived with my husband from creche, so she's just seen me and obviously wants to come on top of me, and my husband's pulling her back, so she's in the living room with their father right now.
Okay.
Oh, you got to be mom. You just got to be mom.
Yeah, I'm in the now with my 1.5-year-old. Yeah, I'm right back with you. This is live radio. This is live radio.
I missed that with my daughter. She, I was a single parent for 17 years, and it's amazing how much of my life she was. In that sense. Now she's all grown up and married and about to have a baby of her own. But I miss my little girl.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just
it was so much fun just being together and doing together and teaching her, and she taught me an awful lot. It was a great thing.
Children do. I'm enjoying. I have to admit, they really always bring me into the now. I mean, I have a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and every day, you are brought into the now, whether you like it or not. And they want love, they want food, they want love, they want food. So it's very, it reminds you of what's really important. And again, before I had children, I was very career, very, build this company, let's make 6 figures, all that kind of thing. But since I've had the children, it really does bring it. It's brought a completely new dimension to my life, and I love nothing more than spending time with my husband and my 2 babies and just hanging out. It's just the family. I'm going to call it the family zone. Being in the family zone, and I just feel very blessed to have that and be able to experience it. And then go into my observer mode sometimes. If the kids all screaming all over Papa. To just observe and just experience that love, and I feel very blessed. So for people out there that sometimes aren't always appreciative of their families, I have some wonderful friends in London now that are in their late 30s and can't seem to have children, which is really sad. But for those of us that are tearing our hair out sometimes with our young children, I think you've got to really have gratitude for what you do have and appreciate that love and that living in the now, because at the end of the day, this is really what it's about. It's about the love, and it's about the people you really care about. And ego doesn't necessarily always have anything to do with that.
I tell people the greatest moment in my life, and I have done a lot of things, and I've things I'm proud of, things I'm not. But the greatest moment of my life was catching my daughter when she was born, cutting the cord, and being the first to hold her. There's nothing else in my life that compares with that. And she has been a daddy's girl ever since then, but still, that one moment where I'm helping a life come into the world and being the first contact that someone who's important to me immediately there was no questions asked. This is the most important person in the world right now, and continued to be for a long, until my daughter became an adult. She was the most important person in my life. And being single, I had lady friends who tried with my daughter. Excuse me, but that's something totally different. You can't compete with my daughter because she has this special place and that's living in the now also, because right now my kid's calling me and you want me here with you. Well, I'm sorry, she needs me and she's more important than you are in this situation. And a lot of my acquaintances didn't understand that.
Before we go a little bit further, let me just at least introduce the show one more time. This is Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio, with co-host Amanda Steadman and a person that you're probably going to hear a lot from, Stash. I think he's going to be our ultimate co-host. And to find out more about Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio, let's give you the website address, which I'm going to give you two. The short one is YTYR Radio, Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio, all one word, .tk. That's the short one. The long one is YTYR Radio.wordpress.com. Either one starts with YTYR Radio. The other one is .tk, and the other is WordPress.com. As a matter of fact, just getting back to our conversation here, the one thing that I do want to bring up here, if you didn't listen to Amanda's show, which was just on last week, you can also find it in our archives on the website. Amanda and I had a very difficult time contacting, or should I say connecting with each other when we met. I had run an ad for interviewers on my show, and Amanda was having problems because, as you've heard on the show already, that she has two little ones, and her little ones were, one was getting sick, the other one was getting well, then they would flip-flop and go back and forth, and she was always apologetic. And my response to her always was, take care of your kids. We can do a radio show at any time. Is that true, or am I fabricating that one there, Amanda?
Yep, that's correct. There was a 2-week window where they were well, and that's where we had our interview,
yeah.
I think.
But in the process of that, going back to more of the spiritual side of life, is that everything, even as Amanda says when she came on, says everything is as supposed to be. It was like, okay, go take care of your kids, because why? I'm a father of 2, Stash has got 1, Amanda's got 2, and matter of fact, the funny thing about this is all of us have girls.
Well, I did. It became more important to me with my daughter because many years ago I lost a son to a swimming pool, and that was a crushing blow. I mean, at that point, I'm surprised. A lot of people are surprised I lived through the period after that, because I went crazy. I went nuts. My son was, he was it. Mm-hmm. And losing a child no parent should outlive their child, ever. But it happens. And, I probably could have prevented it, is the worst part, but it is what it is. So, having my daughter made her that even more ultimately important to me. I stayed at home for 17 years when I had people trying to get me out on the road, either as a roadie or as a performer, But no, I have this responsibility. So I stayed home and did what I do in one town instead of going out in the world and becoming, like a world-famous rock star or the world's best roadie. It just was not important. Mm-hmm. It comes down to what's really important. And children, there's nothing more important than our children and parenting our children. And there's so little parenting going on these days. It drives me nuts. People complain about their kids all the time. Yeah, well, what are you teaching them? That's what it comes down to. Your kids are what you're teaching them. So where are you going to go from there?
It's kind of like the old expression that everybody's coming... Well, I shouldn't say it's an old one, but it's an expression I've been reading a lot of. Everybody's talking about saving the world for our children. How about making the children a better place for our world?
Yeah. Teach your children well. Crosby, Stills, and Nash said it. Teach them their parents' hell. Let them see how not to make the same mistakes you did. An example. That's parenting. Show them how to be a good person. Don't tell them and then run off and do whatever it is you do. Show them. Lead by example. And my daughter, when she came back from the Army, she walked up to me one day and she says, Daddy, I really got to thank you. I said, for what? She said, for being so strict with me. You showed me, the right way. You never lied to. I never made a promise to my daughter if I knew I couldn't keep it. I provided her an example. I told her the truth. I didn't shield her from the world. When she was just barely getting into reading, there was a kid's book called So That's Where I Came From, and it was about pregnancy and birth and that stuff. And yet, it didn't make her promiscuous. She's having her first child, and she's almost 30 years old, or almost 40 years old. No, wait a minute, what is she? She's 30. Yeah. Time flies when you're having a lifetime. But the whole thing was, I had to show her how to exist in this world we live in, and so many people just send them off to school. School doesn't teach you how to live in this world. It teaches you a bunch of rote facts that you're supposed to know, and most people forget after the next test. But skills, how to go out and survive, how to thrive, how to succeed. Who's telling you lies? When she got into the jail program in the schools, I was quite honest with her. I said, look, whatever they tell you, you come home and tell me, and I'll tell you the truth. Because I've actually been there. I've experienced this, Yes, I've done all kinds of drugs in my life. And I was fortunate enough to get past them and learn from my experience and not repeat the mistakes. But if you don't put these out for kids, if you try and hide it from them, they're going to go out and find out their own way. And chances are they'll probably find out the wrong way. And kids need boundaries. You have to provide boundaries, but when you do, if you go to punish the kid, you get punished too. Because if you're going to ground a kid, you got to be there to make sure that they stay grounded. This is what parental response. I think, they have driver's education classes for people who want to go out and run cars. I think high schools should have parenting classes.
You just hit on a subject of mine as well. That's something that I cover in my book, Connect to Authentic Success, which is about, obviously, being yourself, number one. But the other thing is they don't teach you. This is why, coaching has been so popular the last 15, 20 years, because we don't get coached on how to find the right mate, which is really important if you're going to marry someone and have kids. We don't get taught how to handle our finances. And one of the biggest things is we don't get taught how to handle our emotions, because when our emotions are out of control, this is when, people like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, all these fantastic people lose control and we lose them. We're not taught how to handle our emotions. I'm British, so. I mean, if there's any nation that's repressed, we're there being polite and lovely to everyone, and underneath we're seething. We're not taught to really be allowed to express our emotions. And even with my kids now, my daughters like to express anger and screaming quite a lot, and obviously we don't want them to be screaming and crying too much because, it's something that's not really seen as a good thing necessarily. But now it's like, okay, well, let her express it, and then let's talk. I do reason a lot with my children. I talk to them a lot and talk to them as if they're adults. And I get a lot of praise from that from other people rather than just treating them, purely as kids. But the parenting thing's a big thing because unfortunately I lost my mum to cancer about 20 years ago. Fantastic Scottish lady, very, very wise lady, and I miss her terribly with both my kids. And I have to say that there's been a big gap for me. I've learned some from books, some from my auntie, my friends, but there's nothing like having your mum there to tell you what you could be doing with the kids. And it's a different world now to when I'm in my 40s now. It's a very different world now. I'm lucky to be in St. Martin with the girls at the moment because it's quite a safe environment here. You don't have the same territorial boundaries. They're on the beach all the time. There's a very free feeling here. Then pretty much, in swimming costumes most of the time. It's very different to a European upbringing. And I think when and if we go back to Europe, that's going to be a bit of a challenge for them. But it's not been easy, and even for me, I have had to go to books and go, what do I do when they say this, and what about when they're doing this as toddlers? And I've had to feel my way because there isn't a guidebook really, not a complete Bible to how to do it. And I've just gone intuitively. If I've felt something, I've run with it from an intuitive basis. And I know what you mean about boundaries because the girls push. Every child pushes on a daily basis, and you're like, where do you draw the line? And I remember my mum when she was dying. I said, "What about children, Mum?" She said, "Amanda, they love you. They've got to respect you. Once you teach them right from wrong, and that they know that they're loved, everything else should fall into pretty much fall into place." So that's what I've done. Those are kind of the very minimal guide rules she gave me. But it's the toughest job I've ever had, and since I've had children, I totally take my hands off, especially to single parents there, Stash. I struggle with a fantastic husband who is very hands-on with the kids. He's superb. Hats off to you, mate, because to do parenting as a one parent, I think it's very commendable. And it sounds like to me like your daughter's grown up to be a fine woman, and congratulations on almost being a granddad. It's going to be amazing, apparently, according to my father.
Well, it's funny you should. My mother was a Scottish woman too, a little 5'3" who said, "I may be little, but by God, I'm." And I'm like, she ruled the roost. I mean, I learned so much from both of my parents. I mean, my father turned out to be my lifelong best friend, but my mother taught me so much. When I was a mid-teenager, she said something, told me to do something, and I said, "But why? That's woman's work." Oh, boy, I wish I had never said that, because I ended up with a month of doing the dishes, doing the laundry, cleaning the house. She said, "I'm going to teach you to cook, clean, sew, iron your own clothes, because you're either going to be a hell of a successful bachelor or you're going to make some woman a good wife." And that was the last time I ever used that phrase. And when you were talking about kids expressing themselves and their egos and whatever, in our country now, if they do that, they end up on Ritalin. Yeah. Kids aren't allowed to have emotions like in school. And if my kid's teacher ever said your kid has a psychological problem, I'd find a new teacher. Yeah. Because my kid was very intelligent, and I held nothing back from her. And I set rules, and we had a standing thing that if there was something she knew was wrong, that her friends were asking her to do, I was more than willing to play the bad guy so she could get out of it. And she'd come to me and say, "Daddy, I really need to know if I can do this. Well, my response was no, because she was asking me to help her get out of doing something she knew was wrong. And as it turned out, I never had a gray hair on my head till she went through puberty. But, that's that time when every parent, feels stress and strain when the kids are starting to get those raging hormones. And to me, that's the toughest. That was tougher than dealing with the terrible twos or the, traumatic threes or the fearful fours, when they're becoming adults. And there's another thing that parents have trouble with. They spend their lives trying to teach their kids right from wrong and how to make decisions that are right and wrong, but then won't let go and let them make their decisions.
Yeah.
They have to understand. We started from day one. My ex and I agreed. We will never talk baby talk to her. We will never talk down to her. She's not, a little creature going to become a great person. She is a great person who is growing into the world. And you have to respect your kids too. They deserve the respect just for being.
Yeah.
And having to learn all this stuff. It's not an easy road.
Before we go,
and
Steph,
how we deal with it is how our kids turn
Steph,
out.
I hate to interrupt you here, but I just we only have about roughly 10 minutes to go before I have to start the ending of the show. There is a question that I do want to ask, because even Amanda brought it up some time ago. And Sash, you and I were actually talking about it maybe about 2 days ago. And Amanda, you made mention of it, something that you felt on this past Sunday. You felt that you were having to deal with your emotions, your ego, all at one time. And this was something that happened on Sunday, you say?
That's correct,
Okay.
Yeah. All within the space of an hour. So I know energetically I must have attracted it in terms of having to deal with it.
Actually,
all happened within an
point I
hour.
want to bring out, and I want to hear your point of view, because I've heard Stash's, but Stash can add his in there. And I'm just going to throw mine in, and I'll let you know when we have to stop for the ending of the show. That I was talking to Stash a couple of days ago, and I was telling him, I said, did you feel, actually I asked the question, did you feel that there was an energy shift along around Sunday? And he said, yeah, it started actually around Saturday night. And I've talked to a number of people since then. Even Andy, who's the co-producer of the Freedom Talk Radio Network. I've talked to other people. He's over there in England. I've talked with people up in Oregon. The guy I was just doing an interview with before I did the show, and a few other people, and everybody's saying, yes, they felt an energy shift. And it's
interesting. Very
it's
interesting.
pretty much the same for most people. Some people are feeling it as you did. It was just, I have to confront something, and okay, I learned it, I got past it, and go on. Andy was talking about it. He says, I felt like, I'm usually in this mode of, I have to get things done, and I'm always doing this, that, blah, blah, blah. And he says, now everything is just kind of peaceful, and it's like, I still have to get it done, but I'm not frantic over it. And Stash, you can say what your own experience was on it, but it's just like, I felt like I'm somewhat, at sometimes, unattached from myself, and maybe just, if you know what the silver cord is, I feel like I'm floating up the silver cord and then having to pull myself back in. So, Stash and Amanda, why don't you give your experiences on that one?
Ladies first.
That's funny, because apparently some of these issues started on Saturday afternoon stroke evening that I wasn't aware of until Sunday morning. So it's very, very funny you say that. And then I have a couple of properties in the UK, and two major things went wrong. And I just kind of did what I did in terms of sending out an approval, and today everything was resolved. Again, within the space of 24 hours of just working on the energy of it. So that's very interesting that you say that. And I've had a couple of people I've talked to here where strange things have happened to them Saturday, Sunday as well. So, no, interesting. I'm going to go and go into the zone to observe that a little bit more. Kirk. So I'm going to pass it over. So very interesting. We can talk more about that after the show.
Go first, Ash.
Yeah, I showed up at a show Saturday night where the band leader had invited me but hadn't told the rest of the band, and normally her boyfriend, the lead guitar player, runs the show. Well, she hadn't told him, and it was kind of weird vibes all night, but I ended up playing. But it was that disconnect that started things, and then Sunday, I don't know, I just didn't feel like there was anything pressing. Everything had changed, but nothing had changed, and I didn't know. I had problems. I think that's when we talked, just balancing the yes, it matters, but no, it doesn't matter. But yes, it does. But, I began to wonder if we're starting the shift that everyone is talking about, the major planetary energetic shift into 4D or whatever your concept of that is. I'm waiting for it. I want it to happen. I want this world to improve and eliminate a lot of the things that are going on right now. But people have to wake up, and that's the one thing I'm noticing more than anything, is that thanks to, what we're on right now, the biggest internet, because this is the battle for people's minds, and the revolution, as I see it happening, is a revolution in consciousness, and record numbers of people are waking up. They're being exposed to information that they never had access to before, and their cognitive dissonance is decreasing as and once they wake up and get over the initial rebellion against it and start seeing things as they really are, massive numbers of people are starting to get into the idea of change, and as that grows, the collective consciousness is going to change our society. At least that's what I'm hoping for. We need to do a major upgrade in our social structure. We've been taught too many wrong ideas. Really wrong ideas: war, violence, greed, lack, control, competition rather than cooperation. And we only have this one little sphere of influence, where a lot of people I know don't ever visit, a little place I like to call Earth. And more people are getting conscious of being earthbound and being part of something. As you said before, we're all connected. Indeed, we are, vibrationally, and by the fact that we're on this planet together, and we really don't have much choice but to either live on this planet or kill each other on this planet. Yeah. And I personally prefer the former.
Yeah, I would rather live.
And I just want to put something in here as well. Yeah, sorry, were you starting to say
that's
something?
All right. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say just on the back of that was I'd been writing the book for 3 years, and this is the year I decided that it had to come out. I was pulled along energetically to get the book out, and it's amazing because I've done quite a few radio interviews now, and I'm always talking to people. You just assume that sometimes everybody knows what you know, and they don't. And on a few shows, you're saying to people, well, actually it's up to you. You have the choice with your own mind and your own spirit to create part of your own destiny. And a lot of the thoughts just are beyond the comprehension of the I'm just going to say the everyday person. I don't mean that in a condescending way. I just mean people that haven't been exposed to this information yet. And that's one thing that I'm very grateful for, because I managed to get a book up there on Amazon in a short period of time, and that's gone out to thousands of people. And you don't know where that energy is going to shift. I wrote that one book, a few thousand people have it. Each of those people, their energy moves up, and then their vibration moves up, and then their circle of influence, It's like the pebble in the pond. And that's why I get so excited about these radio shows and anything we can kind of put online that's positive, because every single little energy shift counts. And I strongly believe I've been put here as a messenger to get this out to people and to help people wake up. So that's you put it in such an eloquent way, Stash.
Thank you.
So no, I'm right up there with you in terms of raising awareness, and that's what it's up to: raising awareness and getting back to who we are and what we are, which is love at its basic level.
Definitely.
Well, you have your books. Kirk has this radio show and other avenues. I've sort of taken on a case with Facebook, with my wall, and I have been posting things. I mean, you would not believe some of the names I've been called. Fortunately, I have big shoulders and I don't take it personally. But I'm putting things out there that are going on that people do not want to admit is going on. Especially things with our government. That is a big one for me, because I'm what everybody likes to call a constitutionalist. Oh, that's a bad word. That is, according to the NSA, makes you a terrorist candidate. Well, I'm certainly not a terrorist, but I believe in the way, in what I was brought up to believe was a good way of life, a good document to follow, a good principles to follow. And I'm watching the greedy, those without any form of compassion, he who dies with the most toys wins, destroying that which I believe in. So I've taken this on. And, yeah, it's a hard battle.
Yeah.
But I do it anyway, day after day. I get tired of arguing with people who are asleep. Yeah. But I do it because they need to hear.
All right, with that, I have to...
If nobody tells them, they'll never know.
With that, we do have to come up and close the show. I do have some announcements to make. First of all, I do want to thank Amanda and, going by women first, Amanda and Stash for being a part of the show today. Stash coming live, so we didn't have to just listen to the pre-recorded show, which we'll put on another time. Maybe next week, we'll see. And Amanda for coming in. We'll talk to her more in the future. She is one of our regular co-hosts of the show. To find out more information about YTYR, or Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio, please go to our website, which is ytyrradio.tk or ytyrradio.wordpress.com. There's a blog in there. You'll find information about our shows. We'll be on every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. And next week we'll be doing a pre-recorded interview with Marilyn Lawrence, who is an author of the book From Pink to Blue. And our co-host will be Mona of the book Happily Never After, which you can find out more about her by going to our website and or just going to happilyneveraafter.info. And find out what her book is all about. And last but not least, tomorrow here on Freedom Talk Radio Network, you will find Tim and Andy's Night of Liberty show at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. London time on Saturday. And you'll be able to call in on the show. The number is posted, but just in case you don't have it, it's area code 347-677-0812, and that's tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. London, Tim and Andy's
90
Knights
seconds.
of Liberty show. So we thank everyone for coming and being a part of the show. We've just been given notice. We only have a few seconds left. So I do wish you everyone a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week, Friday. Please be sure to check out the website for more information. Be well and take care.